Hello, Cecilia. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I am trying to find my way around these very strange times we're living in.
I understand. Yeah, you're in Spain, right?
Yes, I'm in Barcelona.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very exceptional conditions over there.
Indeed, it's the strangest thing I find is that it's been going on for so long now that it almost feels normal. And the idea of being out and about, surrounded by people, is that feels a bit strange now.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine it must be so strange. How long have you been in lockdown for now?
I think this is now. It must be close to a month. I think
Hmm.
it's 26, 27 days at least.
Yeah,
I don't remember exactly when it was started, but I know that it's the, at the very least 25, 26 days.
that's a long time.
And predicted, I think that, they started loosening some things now, but the expectation is that, normal people with normal non-essential jobs are probably only going to be allowed out, I don't know, I think mid-May, maybe. I think they let children out to go around the block or something in the beginning of May. But grown-ups with non-essential jobs, we might have to wait until late May or something to be able to resume some semblance of normal life.
Yeah.
But again, we never know. We don't know. So
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. But we are so happy to have you here on this Zoom call. Um, as this is the way to meet, the only way we can meet right now.
yeah,
Um, and I'm so excited to find out all about you and what you do and all the tips and tricks you can provide us.
sure.
So I thought we'd start out like, could you describe what it is that you do for a living?
Yes. What I do is I help people use storytelling and public speaking as a way to get their message across, make connections, and stand out. And the way I do that is through keynote speeches, training, and individual coaching. I think that just about sums it up.
Okay, perfect, great. Super good conclusion. So public speaking is like the
Mm,
most, at least for me, like the most terrifying thing,
mm,
um, to like the most terrifying situation to put myself in. So
mm.
like, um, how did you get into public speaking, or was it public speaking, or was it more storytelling that you were attracted to?
Hmm. Yeah. So I'm one of those weird people that have never really been that afraid of speaking in public. So whenever you had in school, someone had to go up there and present in front of the class. I was the one that always did that. So I always took every opportunity I had to get on stage and tell stories and present and talk, but I just never really did it, more than occasionally, because I just didn't have a platform to do it. I never really looked for one. And then this was maybe almost 10 years ago. I was, I have a day job, and a client of mine said, "Oh, I'm part of this group called Toastmasters. I think you'd really enjoy it." And I went, and this is the biggest public speaking club in the world, or group in the world. And ever since I've been a part of it and been hooked, and have not stopped doing it since. So that's how it started.
That's cool. Like, and this Toastmasters Association,
Mm.
what kind was that something you did as a hobby or?
Yeah. So Toastmasters is a non-professional association. So everybody that's part of Toastmasters, the vast majority of people, this is not their job. This is just something they do usually in the evenings. And in our case, we meet every couple of weeks. And then you have improvised speeches, you have prepared speeches, you have feedback sessions, and you can compete, and you, as I have done, but it's all as a hobby. There's nothing professional about it. But for a lot of people, it becomes the platform that they use to go into professional speaking. They do well at Toastmasters, they win competitions, and then they use that as credibility to do it in a professional basis, more or less like what I've done.
I understand. And also, if you're not looking to go into like a career public speaking or keynote speaking, I reckon
Yeah.
you can use public speaking skills in your career, like maybe close to no matter what career you go into, right?
Absolutely, because there is this idea that public speaking is this one thing, and you go up on a stage and you're presenting in front of a bunch of people. But the reality is that you are speaking to someone else that is public speaking, right? You know, what we are doing to some extent is public speaking. It's a public of one, but it's still public speaking. And the skills you use to make yourself interesting and persuasive and informative, entertaining. All of these things apply if you are having any type of work conversation, if you're in a meeting, if you're presenting, and even if you're just writing. I mean, if you're going to write an email and you need to grab someone's attention, then explain something succinctly and maybe have them not be bored to tears, you're going to use very similar skills than if you were writing a speech. The medium is different, but you're still learning to communicate better.
That's true. Yeah, that's very true. Um, cool. Thank you so much for that answer, Francisco. Then, like, is public speaking something one could take on as a full-time career, or is it more like a side hustle, you reckon? How has it been for you?
I think that yes, 100%. Some you can become a professional speaker. There's variations to that. You can become a professional speaker and deliver keynotes. You can become a professional speaker that focuses more on either training corporate teams or doing individual coaching. But it's also the reality that if you're good at all at any job you do, you're almost always going to be expected to speak. So you might be a scientist, which perhaps is the furthest away from someone who should be on a stage speaking. You
Yeah.
will have to get up on a stage and speak and present and do conferences.
Yeah.
So yes, people can do it professionally, and that's just all they do. But I would argue that even if it's the last thing on your mind as a career, if you're any good at whatever you're doing now, you're still going to end up public speaking. So it should be part of as a hobby or as a skill that you practice, regardless if this is what pays your bills or if this is just something you're expected to do because of work.
Perfect. Yeah, that's really good advice to take into account in whatever career you go into. Do you feel that this is something that they should do more in schools, like include in the education more?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think, you know, some schools or some countries have the habit of, you know, debate teams and things of that nature. I'm not sure if this happens in Sweden. It's not something that was done in Brazil, where I grew up, but some training on basic life skills. I mean, people should learn how to cook. They should learn how to manage a household. They should learn something about money. They should learn how to speak in public and make a convincing argument. It's. I think it's kind of criminal that the only professions that worry about this type of stuff are sales, typically. You know, if you're into sales, someone will teach you how to present better and speak in public better most times. But for everyone else, you can go through a whole career without ever having, you know, a 2-day course on how to communicate your ideas verbally better, which is just crazy.
Yeah. Sorry. I think you froze. No, you're still there. Okay, good. No, I totally agree. Because like throughout with Xperienceships, we talk to a lot of students as well, and this is like a reoccurring matter. As soon as you put somebody up, like you have to speak and you have
Yeah.
to talk about. You can even tell them to speak about whatever they want, but they still
Mm.
freeze.
Yeah.
And even if it's speaking in front of 2 people
Mm.
or in front of 30 people, it doesn't really matter. It's such a great fear of a lot of
And
young people.
yeah, but it's a great fear for everyone. And one thing that a lot of people don't realize is, for example, you think of entrepreneurs or anyone that wants to have a startup, which, you know, is such a popular thing. But if you're a founder, you will have to pitch investors. And the way you pitch investors, you maybe not standing up on a stage, although that happens a lot, but you are having to do a speech or a talk or whatever you want to call it. So that is public speaking. So I don't really care if your passion is to create the next Uber, but if you are the founder, you'll be expected to be the person communicating that vision. And if you can't communicate that vision with passion and cohesiveness and persuasiveness, then that might be what stops you from doing this thing that you're really passionate about. And I think that's true for more people than they realize.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And speaking about this fear, like what would
Mm.
your tips be how to get over that fear?
Mm. I think the major tip is that you have to do it a lot. And if you do it over and over and over, you realize there is not that much to it. And also you realize that the worst that's going to happen if you're doing this in an environment that is supportive, like Toastmasters is, nothing happens. I've seen people freeze and be able to get 3 lines out of a speech, and everybody just says, well done.
Yeah.
You tried. It's 3 lines that you perhaps wouldn't have gotten a month ago. Let's try for 6 lines next time. But the other, other than trying a lot, because a lot of people don't necessarily have that practice, there's a few tricks you can use. And one that I like a lot is just eye contact. Because if I'm looking at you while I'm speaking, and this is what public speakers should do, you pick one person at a time and you finish at least one sentence or two looking at that one person. You're speaking to one person. And then you look at another person, ideally find the people in the front row that are smiling, that look friendly, and then you look at that other person for another 2 or 3 sentences. Right? So all you're doing is you're speaking over the course of a few minutes, you're speaking to a handful of people, and the whole room feels like you're speaking to them. What you're never doing is looking at the audience as a whole, because then you're not connecting to anyone. And if you do that, it's like conversation with this person, and this person. And that's a lot less scary than looking at a room with 30 people, 100 people, 1,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing as well is we are all selfish and egomaniac when it comes to public speaking. We think people care about us. Nobody cares about you. Nobody cares if you're a good speaker. They care about what value is in it for them. So if you just think about, I have a message that is important to me and I want to share that with other people. If the message is worthwhile sharing, no one cares if you're stammering a bit, if you're not super slick. Sometimes that even helps. They will notice that you are not a super confident professional speaker, but you still bother to go up there and share. So, make it about the message and not about you and your performance. Look at one person at a time. And if you have the opportunity, practice as much as you can. There's always nerves. I'm still get anxious and nervous, or at least physically anxious and nervous every time I speak, because I care about what I'm doing. But you just learn to change that from fear to excitement. You just read it in a different way.
That's amazing. It's all about attitude
Mm.
when it comes to nerves then. It's just
Yeah, and I guess
making that
I think
shift.
that if you think of people that do things like, I don't know, bungee jumping or skydiving, I'm pretty sure that they do get that the feeling in the pit of their stomach every time. But after the first few times, you just think that this is what excitement of doing this thing feels like.
Hmm.
Before I read that as fear, now I read this as excitement.
Perfect. Thank you. So moving on from tips on who would like to get over the fear, like what kind of tips would you give somebody, or like what skills do you need to get into public speaking?
Okay. In no particular order, you need a little bit of discipline or work ethic, because a lot of people that speak in public don't realize that a lot of preparation goes into it. Right? So if I'm going to do a 15-minute speech, then I will probably write it 3-4 weeks before, if I have the opportunity, if I have that much time, and then I will practice that at least dozens of times. Right? I'm not gonna, try a couple of times, see if I remember it, and then go up there and do it. I would
Like
try,
you do it
if it's really,
like one
if
does
it's
it.
really important. If it's really important, I might do it once or twice a day for a couple of weeks before I actually present. So I think people don't realize that even if you're good at it and you've been doing it for a while, you do practice a lot. So that discipline or work ethic is really important. The second thing is a inclination or a willingness to be vulnerable, right? It's to realize that you're going to go up there, you might not look amazing, if people realize you're nervous, and if you're willing to share something that sometimes is uncomfortable or sometimes makes you scared, that actually has a very powerful impact. Someone that goes up on stage and says, I'm sorry, I'm a bit nervous to be up here, but I really wanted to do this, will get a lot more goodwill from the audience than someone who says, oh, I've done this so many times, this is going to be amazing. So we connect to that vulnerability. So someone willing to do that will get a lot out of it. And the third thing is, I would think is an enthusiasm for life, because a lot of people have this nonsense idea that, I don't have any stories to share, or that nothing exciting happens in my life that I can talk about. But that's crazy. I mean, most of the speeches I do, if I don't have a very specific subject I'm talking about, they'll be personal stories about stuff that is not usually particularly epic. It will be something that happened with my daughter, who's 3, or some argument I got into with my wife or my family, and then from that something else will happen, and I'll learn from it, because those are the stories everybody relates to. If the only people that could talk in public are the people that went up Everest, I mean, it would be a very small club of public speakers. So I think it's looking at your life and thinking, well, this is funny, this is strange, this is weird. Those are the things that generate endless amount of content for speaking in public. It's not the big adventure, it's not this super crazy thing that only a few people in the world have done. Because if you're doing that, it's interesting, but it's not something people relate to. So those are the 3, I think, the discipline, the vulnerability, and the sort of the love for life, if you will.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Super useful skills to keep in mind when you're going into this, because I think that a lot of people, this is just an assumption from my side, but that you think that you need to have done something great, or you need to have climbed the Mount Everest or traveled the world to be able to have anything to bring to the table, because a lot of the speakers you see on TED Talk, on all the, just like the first example, I remembered now, but you get a feeling that all these people have done so many great things, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, TED, for all the amazing organization that TED is, and how incredible speeches, but that is perhaps a slight problem with TED. Is they've done incredible things for public speaking as a medium. It basically brought it back to popularity, and to many people, doing a TED talk or a TEDx talk is the pinnacle of their career, or at least starts their career on the right track.
Exactly.
But it is also true that for you to do a TED talk, if the curators are doing their job well, it should be very original. It should be something that arguably only you in the world can do, or at least something that no one has ever talked about in that way before. And that closes the door to a lot of people that would be very good speaking in public. But that, we are talking about sort of the Olympics of speaking in public.
Sure.
It's just crazy to think that because you couldn't be in the Olympics, you couldn't play sports.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good comparison. I think. Yeah, cool. Yeah, great. But let's talk a little bit about you, Francisco. Like, what inspires you in your career?
So going back to my previous answer, life. I mean, I don't know why that is, but I find most things amusing. I take I have no issue with embarrassing myself. I don't think I'm embarrassing myself, but I will talk about things that a lot of people wouldn't. If I just wrote a book on public speaking, and it's called A Guide to Brutally Honest Public Speaking, and has a guy on the cover opening his chest with a big heart showing. And I find that the things that a lot of people are super embarrassed about, I would never talk about in public. I think, wow, that's amazing. That's exactly what I want to talk about in public. And I've got into the habit of writing down things that happen from my day to day, or stories that I remember, because there's always something interesting in there if you dig hard enough. If you look at your life from the point of view of, what is this telling me? How can other people relate to this? Then you just never run out of content. And this is, again, I like talking clearly. So to me, public speaking is a perfect venue, because you can write, which is something I'm passionate about as well. Then you get to it's not a book that you're writing and sending it out there and hoping people are enjoying it. You can see them as you give out the message, or as you tell the story. And that's amazing. And it's an experience that, apart from being an artist or being a professional sports person, you just don't get. We don't perform our jobs in front of an audience. So I think the combination of all these things to me is, I just can't get tired of it.
Yeah, it's just about being attentive then, like on what's going on in your life. And yeah, that's a really good tip, actually. Just keep your eyes open.
There's no shortage of interesting, funny things. It's just that we don't pay attention to them. And, particularly, I've got children. There is just, bizarre, funny things happening every day. But, it's very easy to focus on how much you love them or how much is exhausting being a parent. But the little things are there at all times. You just need to pay attention and create a habit of doing that. And then all of a sudden, you just always have stuff to talk about.
Yeah, that's very true, actually. So if we move like a little bit from you've made public speaking sound like the most awesome job in the world. And
you have to remember that when you speak to a speaker, our job is to make things sound good. You have to take that into account as well.
Fair enough. Yeah. We were talking about the salespeople that have to be good at public speaking. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, that's true. But I wanted to ask you to share maybe some of the negative sides, or if you've bumped into like any hurdles on your journey that you would like to share with us. That would be really cool.
Okay, so one of the negative sides is that if you're trying to do this professionally, and if you're trying to teach people, if you're trying to be a trainer or a coach, there is that issue of it being an underappreciated skill. So most people tend to think of this as if I'm asking you, if I'm talking about teaching how to sing, oh no, I have no interest in that. I hate the stage. Yeah, but it's not that. You do have to learn how to communicate better. It's never going to be a bad thing in your life or your career to learn these skills. But because this is not a mainstream skill to be taught in schools and companies or whatever, you, in a sense, have to convince people that what you're doing is something that has value or that they should be looking for. So that's sometimes a bit of frustration of this type of job. The other one is that, particularly on the keynote side, is before you build a very large name for yourself, and not that many speakers have done that, where just your name sells speeches. It involves a lot of graft and prospecting and a lot of these boring things they're never what someone gets into the business doing. I was listening to a speaker that I really like. She's called Kindra Hall, and she does the storytelling thing, and I think she's the #1 speaker in the world at the moment in storytelling. And she tells about her start, and her start involved sending 100 emails manually every week for I think 6 weeks straight, to then get 5 responses, of which one of them was an invitation to speak at an unpaid gig. And in the beginning, obviously she's much past that now, but even if you listen to her or speakers of that level, they'll say that the business side of things is sometimes the difference between you doing 20 speeches a year or doing 50 speeches a year. Right? So I think with any job, if you forget that it's a business and you need to sell yourself, then it can become this thing of, well, I'm great, why is no one coming to me and paying me to speak?
Yeah.
So that's the part with this job, as with many jobs, that is the negative one.
Yeah, I understand. And I can imagine as a keynote speaker or as a public speaker that it becomes very personal.
Mm,
Is it easy to take criticism
mm.
and all that very personally, even though it might not be directed like directly to you?
Well, no, it's 100% personal because we are the product.
Hmm.
So if I'm contacting an organization and saying, I think I'll be great for the conference you have coming up. Here's, a 3-4 minute video of me speaking, and they show no interest, is why don't you like me? you know. And another point, which is again, is not a problem, hasn't been a problem for me just yet, but it is a problem for anyone that does well as a professional speaker, is that it's a job that does involve traveling. So if you are being very successful, you are doing 30, 40, 50, 60 speeches a year, you are probably not doing most of them in the same city or even country where you live. So you might have to be away from home for, you know maybe if you're very successful, a couple of days, 2-3 days a week. And that's obviously not ideal for a lot of people. Obviously you can manage your time and your traveling to a certain degree, so it wouldn't have to be that way, but it's a job that almost certainly is going to involve time away from your family if you do it well.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really good to know. And speaking about traveling, like
Yeah.
now the current situation that we're in,
Yes.
I can only imagine how much it must have affected your job in that case.
Yeah, significantly, because my situation is that although I have been speaking for a long time, I only really took this up as a career last year. And in the beginning, there was a lot of groundwork. So I wrote the book, and then I got a website done, and I started building a bit of a presence on LinkedIn, and all of those things were ramping up to now. I had a conference coming up this Saturday, and then very much expected that I would spend the next few months prospecting a lot more and getting a few gigs here and there. So right now, that's just not happening, and it's not going to happen probably for at least another 6 months. If I'm optimistic, next year things will be back to normal in some parts of the world.
Mhm.
But right now, you either doing it online or you're not doing it at all. And I can do it online, but there are different business models. There are different, not quite skill sets, but if you're setting yourself up to be a conference speaker, and now all of a sudden you have to pivot to being an online speaker without having built a name in the market, it's just a very different type of business. So some people, I think, were able to just say to all the companies that have hired them, listen, let's not cancel, let's do this online, we'll charge you differently, we'll make it work. For anyone that isn't in the market, you can still sell yourself as an online keynote speaker. But I think a lot of companies might say, well, we might keep the one or two main speakers of our event, but we're not going to have a program filled with 20 speakers to do it online. Right? It's just, so I
Right.
don't know. We're still finding our feet with that. Hopefully it's not something that's our reality for the next year, but yeah, I mean, it's a job that involves traveling internationally and putting 500 people in a room. So you could hardly think of a worse job to have when this type of stuff is going on.
Yeah, I totally understand. So what are your plans now, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I'm still doing all the things that I was doing. So I've made a big effort to produce content regularly on LinkedIn. I'm starting a podcast now. So I'm doing all things that I was going to do anyway. I'm having a bit more time to do them now. And with this conference that I still have coming up, it's just going to be an online conference. Now I need to get a different type of speaker video to promote what I'm doing. I think it's essentially the same thing, but we have to redirect to the whole online proposition. So I think, I'm still going to try to do exactly what I was trying to do, but I'm going to put off looking for live speaking opportunities for at least another 6 months. Right.
Yeah. I totally
It is,
understand.
it is what it is. We have to, we have to roll the punches, I guess.
You have to adapt, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, Sorry, I just tried to see where we were going next.
Right.
I was going to ask you if you could share, like, you've shared so much good information with us already. Like, it's been, like, we could almost write a book with all this um, info that you've provided us. But I wanted to see if you could provide us with, like, 2, 3 resources that we should check
Mm.
out to learn more about public speaking, or where we should go to find out more.
Okay, so I'll start with the smaller investment of time to the largest. So there's one TEDx speech that I really like, and I think it's a good primer for people that are not that into public speaking. It's from a guy called David J.P. Phillips,
Okay.
and the name of the talk is 101 Techniques for Public Speaking and Communication, or something like that. But if you look for David J.P. Phillips 101, it will come up. It's a fairly popular TEDx talk, and it's a good one for people that don't necessarily realize why public speaking is important and what are the type of things that a good speaker does and not so good speakers do. So that one I like. Then there's a friend of mine who's a very good public speaking trainer, and on LinkedIn, he almost all he puts on LinkedIn is public speaking tips, and he does this in a very interesting way. He draws these little infographics, so it's a very visual thing. So the way to follow him is if you follow if you go to LinkedIn and you look for the hashtag FM, so the same initials as me, so F for Freddy, M for Mother, Insights. So FM Insights. His name is Florian Mook, and then he has all of his infographics there, and it's just a very interesting way to see, basic tips on public speaking. Not basic, a lot of advanced stuff, but loads and loads in a very easy to digest format. And then the last one is if someone actually wants to read a book. Obviously I've written one, which I intended to be as something that is from beginning to end. So where you find the ideas, how you write speeches, how do you make them better, how you practice, all of that stuff. But if someone is perhaps not that my book is for beginners, but the TED book from Chris Anderson, TED Talks, is also a very, very interesting one. Perhaps not so much for beginners, but for people that have been doing public speaking and want something meaty. I still think they could get a lot out of my book, but the TED book is a very, very good one.
Okay.
I got stuff out of it, and I've been doing this stuff for almost 10 years.
Wow. Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much. And we will list those resources down in the description of this video in case you didn't take notes. But like, finally, like, what are the next steps you're planning to take on your journey, and like, where can we follow you in social media, or I don't know, where in cyberspace can we find you?
Okay. So the next steps for me are what I'm doing right now. So
Yeah.
LinkedIn is the best place to find me. I've now made a habit of posting content there every single day, or at least every single weekday, and that would involve stories. That will involve. I now started putting out videos. There's things that talk about public speaking, about storytelling. So LinkedIn, and I'm fairly accessible. Connect with me, talk to me, whatever. I make an effort to try and actually, treat people like human beings when they try to approach me. You can have a look at my website, which is, for simplicity, storypowers.com. Now it's my name as well, but no one can spell my name, so storypowers.com is a little easier. And I've mentioned some of the things I'm working on now. I'll keep at it with LinkedIn. The podcast, I've just started recording the first few episodes, so I expect that in another 3-4 weeks I can start releasing them. And I think that's it. I'll keep trying to lay the groundwork for, when life goes back to some normality. But if not, then I very much expect that in another month or two, I'm going to start trying to get the online stuff to be an option for me as well, which I wasn't set up for. But we've got to We've got to change with the times.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. And where can we find your book? Is it on
It's on
Amazon?
Amazon. Yeah, if you just type my name, if you type my name on Amazon, then you find it. If you go to my website, the links for the book will be there as well.
Perfect. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Francisco, for this chat. It's been amazing having you.
It's been a pleasure.
Cool. And we'll continue to follow your journey. Maybe we can have you back on in January to see how things are have changed.
Oh, there is a saying that I don't know if it's how famous the saying is for public speakers, but I consider it as a personal motto, which is never say no to stage time. And this is stage time in the world we're living in now. So yeah, glad to be back whenever you want to have me back.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
I will do my best, but I don't decide that. The 3-year-old decides that.
Fair
And
enough.
the newborn baby.
Well, I hope you and your 3-year-old have an amazing evening, however.
Thank you very much, Cecilia.
Okay, speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. So that was Coffee Break with Francisco Mahfuz here at Xperienceships channel with me, Cecilia. I've had such an amazing time with Francisco. It's been amazing to hear that public speaking is not only for you looking to build a career out of it, but it's also useful for everybody in any field. So that was really, really cool advice from him. If you're looking to check out any of the resources that Francisco provided us, you have them in the description down below, along with his website. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and to explore more careers with us here at Xperienceships. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.